Welcome back. This is BL Stories for You. I'm an indie author dedicated to original BL storytelling. From high school drama to fantasy worlds, everything you hear is written by me. I'm so glad you're here for this journey. Let's begin.
Aarhiya's feet touched the ground slowly, almost uncertainly, like he wasn't entirely sure gravity still applied to him. For a moment he just stood there, still holding the little boy in his arms, his heart pounding loudly in his chest as the light slowly dimmed. I flew. The thought echoed in his mind over and over. He had jumped without thinking. That much he remembered clearly. But flying? Actually rising into the air like that? His brain couldn't catch up with what his body had just done. Before he could even begin to process it, the boy suddenly wriggled in his arms. Mom! The widow rushed forward through the crowd, tears streaming down her face. She pulled her son into a tight embrace the moment Aarhiya set him down. My child! Oh, my precious child, she sobbed, kissing his head again and again as if she never wanted to let go. The boy clung to her too, still shaken but safe. Then the widow turned back to Aarhiya, her face full of gratitude. Thank you so much, she said breathlessly, grabbing his hands. You saved him. I don't know how to repay you. Aarhiya quickly shook his head, flustered. And no, it's okay. Anyone would have done the same. But people were already gathering around him. First a few curious onlookers. Then dozens. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd. He flew. Did you see the light? That glow, it was like the sun. Suddenly someone dropped to their knees. She's a goddess. Another voice joined. A divine being. Within seconds, more people began bowing and praising him, their voices rising with excitement. Aarhiya's eyes widened. Wait, no, please don't do that, he said nervously. I'm not a goddess. I'm just. But the crowd only grew louder. You brought light. You saved the boy. Bless us. Aarhiya tried to smile politely, but his head was starting to spin. The glow around his body had completely faded now, replaced by a heavy exhaustion that seeped deep into his bones. His legs felt weak, like they might give out any second. Oh, that's not good, he murmured softly. The world tilted. Just as his knees buckled. Strong arms caught him. The crowd gasped all at once. Kaenar stood there, holding Aarhiya firmly against his chest. For a brief moment, the Emperor didn't look at anyone else. His gaze was fixed on Aarhiya's pale face, making sure he was breathing, making sure he was still conscious. Then he lifted his head and addressed the stunned crowd. The festival will continue, Kaenar said calmly. His voice was steady, commanding, leaving no room for argument. Enjoy the night. Without another word, he lifted Aarhiya more securely in his arms and began walking toward the palace. People stared in complete disbelief. The Emperor of Darkness, carrying someone like that. Even the elders looked speechless. Lantern light followed Kaenar as he disappeared through the palace gates with Aarhiya in his arms, leaving behind a plaza full of shocked whispers. A short distance away, Nello watched everything unfold with a strange feeling twisting in his chest. Did you see that? He finally said. Polar, standing beside him, glanced toward the palace doors before shrugging lightly. Kind of hard not to. Nello crossed his arms, still staring after the Emperor. I thought the Emperor of Darkness was supposed to be cruel, he said slowly. Cold. Wicked. That's what everyone always said. Polar tilted his head. Reputations can be exaggerated. But he looked different just now. Nello hesitated. Polar gave a small smirk. They've been training together for months. People tend to grow close after spending that much time together. He glanced toward the palace. His mind was somewhere else now. The power I just saw, he murmured. Nello raised an eyebrow. I've never seen anything like it, Polar continued. It reminded me of something. He paused, thinking back. 10 years ago, the sun appeared over Umbraeth. Only for a moment, Polar said. Just a few seconds. But everyone saw it. People were shocked. Some even cried. He let out a quiet breath. And then it vanished. His gaze returned to the palace. Tonight felt like that again. He turned back to Nello, his eyes narrowing slightly. I'm sure now. Xianxia isn't normal. Then he leaned closer. Tell me the truth, Polar whispered. There's something more to her, isn't there? Nello immediately waved the idea away. You're overthinking things, he said casually. Xianxia isn't anything special. Polar frowned. She was the weakest person in Luminar, Nello added with a shrug. Polar raised an eyebrow. Weakest, he repeated slowly. Because that didn't look like the weakest person to me. Nello didn't respond. Instead, he looked away toward the glowing palace. Inside, his thoughts were racing. Because the truth was, he was shocked too. Aarhiya flying. Aarhiya glowing like the sun. None of that made sense. But what troubled him even more was the way the Emperor had held him. Polar frowned slightly. Something was definitely going on between Kaenar and Aarhiya, and he was afraid Aarhiya might let it consume him. Kaenar pushed open the door to Aarhiya's room with his shoulder, still holding him carefully in his arms. The room was quiet, lit only by a few soft lanterns. Compared to the chaos of the festival outside, it felt almost peaceful. He walked straight to the bed and gently laid Aarhiya down on the soft blankets, making sure his head rested comfortably against the pillows. For a moment, Kaenar didn't move. He just stood there looking down at him, studying his pale face. How are you feeling? He finally asked. Aarhiya shifted slightly, his body still heavy with exhaustion. Weak, he admitted honestly. Like my bones turned into water. Then his eyes brightened with excitement. But I flew. He laughed softly, almost in disbelief. I actually flew. He lifted one hand and stared at it like it belonged to someone else. All this time I thought I was getting stronger for nothing, but maybe I finally broke the seal. Kaenar nodded slowly. Yes, he said quietly. I think you did. But the calm expression on his face didn't last long. Suddenly, he leaned forward and pulled Aarhiya into a tight embrace. Aarhiya blinked in surprise. Kaenar's arms wrapped around him firmly, almost desperately, like he needed to make sure Aarhiya was really there. I was scared, Kaenar murmured. Aarhiya froze. When you jumped, Kaenar continued, his voice low and strained, I thought my heart stopped. He tightened his grip slightly. I have fought wars. I've faced rebellions and assassins. I've watched entire armies charge at me without fear. He let out a quiet breath. But when I saw you jump from that ledge, I thought I might faint. I've never been that scared before. For a moment, Aarhiya didn't know what to say. Kaenar, scared. Because of him. Slowly, Aarhiya smiled as he wrapped his arms around Kaenar's neck. My body just reacted, he said softly. I didn't even think about it. He chuckled lightly. I just saw the boy falling, and my instinct took over. He paused. I cared more about saving him than about what might happen to me. Kaenar pulled back slightly, just enough to look at him. There was something emotional in his eyes now, something Aarhiya had never seen before. Aarhiya swallowed softly. Were you really that worried? He asked in a near whisper. Kaenar didn't hesitate. Yes. He reached out and brushed a loose strand of hair away from Aarhiya's face. I think it's because I'm starting to see you differently. His voice softened. Somewhere along the way, you became someone very important to me. Aarhiya's chest tightened. Kaenar's gaze didn't leave his face. So you need to take care of yourself, he added gently. Protect yourself. Then, after a small pause, he said something that made Aarhiya's entire body warm. And I know it isn't related, but you looked beautiful today. Aarhiya's heart immediately began racing. The way Kaenar was looking at him now, it made him feel like he was the most precious thing in the entire world. Their faces were close now. Close enough that Aarhiya could feel Kaenar's breath. Neither of them moved away. Slowly, Kaenar leaned closer. Aarhiya's eyes fluttered slightly. They were just about to close the distance between them, when a loud voice suddenly shattered the moment. Your Majesty. Todi's voice came from outside the door. Aarhiya and Kaenar froze. There's someone here insisting on seeing Xianxia, she called out loudly from the hallway. Curious about the commotion outside, they stepped out of the room and walked down the corridor toward the palace hall. The moment they entered, Aarhiya's eyes landed on two familiar figures waiting near the pillars. For a split second, he froze. Nello. Before anyone could react, Aarhiya's face lit up in a way Kaenar had never seen before. His entire expression changed, his eyes bright, his smile wide and unrestrained. Nello. Aarhiya hurried forward, almost forgetting how tired he was. Nello's face broke into the same joyful expression, and the two of them closed the distance between them quickly. They ran straight into each other's arms. Aarhiya. Nello laughed, pulling him into a tight embrace. Your Highness. Do you know how worried I was? Aarhiya hugged him just as tightly. Nello, you're here. I can't believe it, you're actually here. The two of them stepped back only slightly, still holding onto each other's shoulders as they looked each other over like people who have been separated for years. You look well, Aarhiya said, squinting at him. Nello laughed. Well, it's all thanks to Polar. Their laughter filled the hall as they talked over each other excitedly, completely caught up in their reunion. A few meters away, Kaenar stood silently watching. Something about the sight made his chest tighten. He couldn't quite explain why, but seeing Aarhiya smile like that, so freely, so brightly, made something twist uncomfortably inside him. He had never seen that smile before. Not once. Not during their training, not during the festival preparations, not even when Aarhiya succeeded in flying. But with Nello, it appeared effortlessly. Kaenar's jaw tightened slightly. Beside him, Polar appeared. He noticed everything. He leaned a little closer to Kaenar, lowering his voice just enough so only the Emperor could hear him. Well, Polar murmured with a faint smirk, it seems you have competition now. Kaenar didn't respond, but his gaze remained fixed on the two young men laughing together. Polar watched him carefully, amused by the subtle shift in his posture. You know, he continued, your feelings for Xianxia are becoming painfully obvious. Kaenar finally glanced at him. Polar chuckled softly. Anyone who had doubts before tonight certainly doesn't anymore, he said. Not after seeing how you caught her like she was the most precious thing in the world. He smirked. Honestly, Your Majesty, if someone saw that scene without context, they'd immediately assume you were in love. Kaenar's expression remained calm, but he didn't deny it. Polar straightened slightly, his tone becoming a little more serious. You shouldn't run from it. Kaenar looked at him again. You're the Emperor, Polar continued quietly. The ruler of Umbraeth. A man who commands armies and bends magic to his will. He folded his arms. So why cower in front of love? Kaenar didn't answer immediately. Across the hall, Aarhiya and Nello were still talking animatedly, their voices drifting through the room as they caught up with each other. Polar nodded subtly in their direction. If you want her, he said calmly, hold on to her. His voice dropped a little. And confess before it's too late. For a moment, silence hung between them. Kaenar's gaze slowly returned to Aarhiya. He watched the way Aarhiya laughed at something Nello said, the way his shoulders relaxed, the way his entire presence seemed lighter around him. Polar's words echoed quietly in his mind. Hold on to her, before it's too late. Kaenar remained silent, but the way his eyes lingered on Aarhiya made it clear that he understood exactly what Polar meant. Meanwhile, Nello bowed slightly out of habit. You're high. Then he caught himself mid-sentence. For a brief second, an awkward pause hung in the air. Nello straightened quickly, correcting himself with a small smile. Xianxia, he said instead. Aarhiya noticed the slip but didn't say anything. Nello stepped closer to him, studying his face carefully. You've been through a lot, Nello said quietly. And I know, a lot of it happened because of me. Aarhiya shook his head immediately. That's not true. But Nello didn't seem convinced. Look at you, he continued, gesturing toward him. You nearly died today. You've been pushed into training, politics, magic, all things you were never good at. His voice softened. But it's over now. Aarhiya frowned slightly. What do you mean? Nello smiled, though there was urgency behind it. You're stronger now, he said. You proved that tonight. You flew, Aarhiya. You broke whatever was holding you back. He placed a hand on Aarhiya's shoulder. So there's no reason for us to stay here anymore. Aarhiya blinked. Nello continued, more firmly this time. We made a mistake leaving home. Both of us. His eyes softened with nostalgia. Let's go back to Luminar. Let's forget everything that happened here. He gave a small laugh. You hate dark places anyway. For a moment, Aarhiya didn't respond. Then he slowly shook his head. I can't. Nello blinked in surprise. What? Aarhiya looked down at his hands briefly. I can't leave Umbraeth, he repeated quietly. Nello stared at him in disbelief. Why not? Aarhiya's eyes brightened as he began speaking, his excitement bubbling up despite his earlier exhaustion. Because something is happening here, he said. Something important. Did you see the people tonight? He asked. How happy they were. He turned back to Nello. I flew today, he added, his voice filled with wonder. I actually flew, and when they saw me, they had hope. He laughed softly, still amazed by it himself. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel weak. His chest rose with emotion. Maybe destiny brought me here for a reason. Nello's expression slowly hardened. Wake up. The words came out sharper than expected. Aarhiya turned toward him. Nello's expression had changed completely. This isn't Luminar, Nello said coldly. This is Umbraeth, a kingdom drowning in its own misery. His eyes narrowed slightly. Let the people of Umbraeth figure out their own problems. But Aarhiya shook his head again. No, he said softly but firmly. I can't just leave them. That was when Nello's gaze slowly shifted past Aarhiya. His eyes landed on Kaenar. The Emperor had been standing silently nearby the entire time. Nello stared at him for a long moment before looking back at Aarhiya. Then he asked quietly. Is it because of him? Aarhiya froze. The silence that followed said more than any answer could. Nello's eyes darkened with understanding. I knew it, he muttered. He folded his arms, his tone turning bitter. It was obvious tonight. Aarhiya looked confused. What was? The way the Emperor carried you, Nello said flatly. In front of the entire kingdom. His voice sharpened. You think people didn't notice that? Aarhiya felt his chest tighten. Did you forget your conviction? He asked. Aarhiya's breath caught. You swore you would never allow any man to dominate you. The word struck harder than Aarhiya expected. But Nello wasn't finished. And more importantly, he continued, his voice dropping lower, don't forget something very important. He leaned closer. The person Kaenar is looking at, isn't you? Aarhiya's heart sank. He sees Xianxia, Nello said quietly. Not Aarhiya. Each word felt like a blade. So whatever affection you think he has for you isn't directed at the real you. Aarhiya's eyes lowered, his excitement faded. Polar's words had struck the exact truth he had been trying not to think about. Polar exhaled slowly. Before things become complicated, he said more gently now, before feelings get too deep. We should leave. He extended his hand toward Aarhiya. Let's get out of Umbraeth while we still can. Aarhiya hesitated. Nello grabbed his hand. Come with me. But the moment Nello's fingers closed around Aarhiya's wrist, a powerful presence moved forward. Kaenar stepped between them. His voice was calm, but his eyes were anything but. Kaenar's hand closed firmly around Aarhiya and Nello's hand. His eyes settled on Nello, calm but sharp as he pulled Aarhiya to his side. What exactly are you trying to do? Kaenar asked. Nello didn't back down. If anything, his expression hardened. He stepped forward again, his chin lifting slightly in defiance. I'm taking Aarhiya home, he said plainly. The hall fell quiet. Nello's voice carried conviction as he continued. He doesn't belong here. Neither of us do. This place, it's not our home. Our home is Luminar. His gaze locked with Kaenar's. So you should do the right thing, Nello added. Let us go. For a moment, Kaenar didn't say anything. Then his fingers tightened slightly around Aarhiya's arm as he pulled him closer to his side. No. The single word was calm but absolute. Nello frowned. Kaenar spoke again, his tone steady. I cannot do that. I am responsible for him. Nello scoffed. Responsible? Since when? Kaenar ignored the comment. As long as Xianxia is with me, he said, she will never suffer. His voice softened slightly as he glanced at Aarhiya. I will make sure of that. Then his gaze returned to Nello. But I cannot let her leave. A brief silence followed. Kaenar's voice lowered just a little when he added. Because she is someone very important to me. Aarhiya felt his breath catch. He slowly lifted his eyes to Kaenar's face. The determination there was unmistakable. There was no hesitation. No doubt. And hearing those words out loud made Nello's earlier ones echo painfully in his mind. The person he sees isn't you, it's Xianxia. Aarhiya's chest tightened. Before the tension between the two men could escalate further, Polar suddenly stepped forward. He grabbed Nello's wrist firmly. That's enough, Polar said quietly. Nello looked at him, surprised. But Polar shook his head slightly. We didn't come here to start a fight. He turned toward Kaenar, his expression unreadable. I suppose we'll see each other again, Your Majesty. Then he tugged Nello's arm. Come on. Nello hesitated, glancing back at Aarhiya. But Polar pulled him along. Reluctantly, Nello allowed himself to be led away, though he kept looking over his shoulder as if hoping Aarhiya would change his mind and follow. Soon their footsteps faded down the palace corridor. The hall fell quiet again. Aarhiya stood there, unmoving. For so long, he had dreamed of leaving Umbraeth. Of going home. Of escaping the dark kingdom that had swallowed him. And now the chance had been right in front of him. Yet, he hadn't moved. Aarhiya slowly looked up at Kaenar. Deep down, he already knew the reason. It had nothing to do with Umbraeth. Nothing to do with destiny. It was because of Kaenar. In another wing of the palace, the atmosphere was far from celebratory. Xianxia's chambers echoed with the sound of something shattering. A porcelain cup slammed against the floor, breaking into sharp pieces as it skidded across the dark tiles. Lenrea stood in the middle of the room, her chest rising and falling with anger. Her hands trembled slightly as she paced back and forth. "How?" she snapped, her voice filled with disbelief. "How did this happen?" Her mind kept replaying the scene from the festival over and over. Everything had been perfect. The curse had worked exactly as planned. The boy had been possessed, the entire crowd watching. Xianxia had been standing right there playing her flute. If the boy had died in front of everyone, Xianxia would have been blamed for failing to control the festival she had insisted on organizing. It would have destroyed her. And yet, Lenrea clenched her fists. Instead, she muttered bitterly, she turns into some glowing miracle. The door opened quietly. Advisor Durian stepped inside, closing the door behind him with careful calm. Lenrea immediately turned to him. "Did you see it?" she demanded. Everything was going according to plan. And then suddenly she stopped, unable to even find the words for what she had witnessed. "That amount of power," she hissed. "Where did it come from?" Durian listened patiently, his expression far calmer than hers. When she finished ranting, he simply sighed. "Lenrea," he said evenly, "calm yourself." She stared at him in disbelief. "Calm down," she scoffed. She just turned the entire kingdom in her favor. Durian clasped his hands behind his back. "Which is exactly why we should not act recklessly now." Lenrea's anger simmered as she folded her arms. "So what do you suggest?" she asked bitterly. Durian's eyes darkened slightly. "We inform Sakador." Lenrea paused. At the mention of the name, the tension in the room shifted. Durian continued calmly. "If anyone understands what this development means, it's him." Lenrea slowly exhaled. "Yes," she murmured. "Sakador will know what to do." Meanwhile, in another part of the palace, Kaenar stood alone at the balcony overlooking the festival grounds. The lanterns had long since been extinguished, but the memory of the night still lingered in his mind. Polar's words echoed in his thoughts. "You shouldn't run from it. If you want her, hold on to her." Kaenar exhaled slowly. There was no point denying it anymore. He had felt many things in his life: anger, ambition, responsibility. But what he felt for Xianxia, that was something entirely different. And the thought of Xianxia leaving Umbraeth, leaving him, his jaw tightened. That was the last thing he wanted. Whether she was the bringer of the sun or not, he didn't care. He just wanted her. Without hesitation, Kaenar walked toward the door. "Todi." The maid appeared almost immediately, bowing respectfully. "Yes, Your Majesty." Kaenar stepped closer and lowered his voice slightly. "There is something I want you to do for me." Todi looked curious but attentive. "But it must be done discreetly." The next day, the palace gates were completely overwhelmed. Crowds of people gathered outside, filling the courtyard with chatter and excitement. Word of what happened during the Moon Festival had spread through Umbraeth overnight. And now everyone wanted to see Aarhiya. Some came carrying small gifts, flowers, handmade charms, fruit, lanterns, even pieces of cloth dyed in bright colors. Many people had even started dressing differently. Instead of the usual dark tones Umbraeth was known for, several villagers wore bright fabrics, whites, silvers, and pale blues. Colors inspired by Aarhiya. To them, he had become something more than human. A symbol. A sun goddess. Inside the palace, Todi approached Aarhiya with a small smile. "You should come see this," she said. Curious, Aarhiya followed her to the balcony where Kaenar was already standing. The moment Aarhiya stepped outside, the crowd erupted. Cheers and cries filled the courtyard. "They love you," Kaenar smiled to Aarhiya. "It's her. The sun goddess. Bless us." Aarhiya blinked in surprise at the sea of people below. So many, he murmured. He stepped closer to the railing and raised his hands nervously. Everyone, please calm down, he called gently. The crowd quieted slightly. I want to thank you for coming, Aarhiya continued with a warm smile. But you really don't need to bring gifts. He gestured toward the offerings piled near the gates. Life is already difficult enough for all of you. Please keep those things for yourselves. But the crowd began protesting immediately. Please accept them. You've given us hope. Let us thank you. Aarhiya's smile faltered slightly. Hope. That word again. Kaenar watched the crowd carefully. Then he leaned slightly closer to Aarhiya. There's something we need to do today, he said calmly. Aarhiya turned to him. What is it? Kaenar replied. We're going to see Whitey. His tone carried a quiet weight. And I believe she'll have answers about what happened to you last night. Whitey's hut smelled faintly of herbs and smoke, just as it always did. Bundles of dried plants hung from the wooden beams above, swaying slightly whenever a breeze slipped through the open window. Whitey sat cross-legged on a woven mat near the fire, watching Aarhiya and Kaenar with a knowing smile the moment they stepped inside. Well, she said warmly, her eyes settling on Aarhiya, it seems congratulations are in order. Aarhiya blinked. 4. Whitey chuckled softly. For unlocking your power, of course. Aarhiya bit his lip. It still feels unreal, he admitted. Whitey nodded thoughtfully. Power like yours doesn't awaken easily. But training with someone as powerful as Kaenar clearly helped push things forward. She gestured casually toward the Emperor. Kaenar sat quietly beside Aarhiya, arms loosely folded, listening. But, Whitey continued, raising one finger slightly, that was only the beginning. Both Aarhiya and Kaenar looked at her. There is still more power inside you, she explained. Much more. And if you want to awaken it fully, if you want to truly bring the sun back to Umbraeth. She paused for dramatic effect. Then there is something else you must do. Aarhiya leaned forward a little, curious. What is it? Kaenar asked the same question almost at the same time. Whitey looked at them both and said very calmly. You need to sleep together. Silence filled the hut. Aarhiya's brain stopped working. Kaenar blinked once. Then twice. What? Aarhiya choked. His face instantly turned bright red. Kaenar cleared his throat awkwardly, though a faint flush had also crept onto his normally composed face. Whitey, however, looked completely unbothered. I'm serious, she said plainly. Aarhiya covered his face with both hands. You can't just say something like that so casually. Whitey waved her hand dismissively. Oh please, she scoffed. Your hearts are already bonded. Both men froze. She pointed between them. Anyone with eyes can see that. Aarhiya looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. Whitey continued, completely shameless. The connection between you two has already begun. It's only a matter of time before your bodies bond as well. Aarhiya made a strangled sound somewhere between embarrassment and disbelief. I can't. Before either of them could say anything else, Aarhiya bolted upright. I need air. And just like that, he rushed out of the hut. The door swung shut behind him. For a moment, Kaenar and Whitey sat in silence. Then Whitey slowly turned her gaze toward the Emperor. A knowing smile spread across her face. You're already in love. Kaenar didn't answer immediately. But he didn't deny it either. Whitey's expression softened slightly. Then listen carefully, she said quietly. Never let go. No matter what happens, no matter what you find out later. Her voice carried an unusual seriousness now. Stay together. No matter what. Kaenar met her gaze, feeling confused as to why she sounded so ominous. However, he gave a small nod. Then he stood. Without another word, he stepped outside the hut. Aarhiya stood a short distance away, near the trees, trying desperately to calm his racing heart. He pressed his palms against his cheeks, which still felt burning hot. Sleep together. How could she just say that like it's nothing, he muttered under his breath. He groaned softly. This is so embarrassing. Footsteps approached behind him. Aarhiya turned slightly and saw Kaenar walking toward him. His face immediately heated up again. For a moment neither of them mentioned Whitey's words. Kaenar stopped beside him, looking completely calm again, though there was a faint softness in his eyes. We have something to do, he said. Aarhiya blinked. What? Kaenar didn't answer right away. Instead, he climbed onto the horse and offered his hand. Aarhiya looked at it for a moment before finally taking it. Kaenar helped pull him up behind him. Moments later, the horse began moving down the forest path, carrying the two of them away from Whitey's hut and deeper into the quiet hills of Umbraeth. Back at Polar's small hut, Nello sat at a wooden table, grinding a handful of plants inside a stone mortar with far more force than necessary. The pestle thudded loudly against the bowl as he crushed the leaves. Across the room, Polar glanced up from the glass vial he was examining. He watched Nello for a moment, noticing the tight set of his shoulders and the way his jaw was clenched. You're going to destroy the mortar if you keep doing that, Polar said casually. Nello didn't look up. I'm just crushing plants, he muttered. Polar raised an eyebrow. You're attacking them, he corrected. Nello sighed and slowed down a little, though the annoyance on his face remained obvious. Polar leaned back slightly against the table, folding his arms. I understand how you feel. Nello paused. He looked up at him, confused. What do you mean? Polar tilted his head, studying him like he was an interesting puzzle. You're upset because you're in love with Xianxia. The pestle slipped from Nello's hand and clattered inside the bowl. What? He said immediately. Polar shrugged lightly. It's obvious. Nello stared at him like he had just said something ridiculous. That's not true, he said quickly. Polar hummed skeptically. Nello shook his head firmly. I'm loyal to her, he said. That's all. He went on. I've known her since we were children. Of course I'm protective of her. He looked slightly irritated now. So you're completely misunderstanding things. Polar watched him calmly, completely unconvinced. No, he said. I'm not. Nello frowned. I saw your face when the Emperor took him away, Polar continued. I saw how you reacted when Aarhiya refused to leave with you. He shrugged again. You don't react like that unless your feelings run deeper than friendship. Nello opened his mouth to argue but Polar cut him off. And besides, Polar added quietly, I know what unrequited love looks like. Nello blinked at him. Polar's gaze had drifted away slightly, like he was remembering something. If you keep holding on to someone who doesn't feel the same way, he continued, his voice calmer now, you'll only end up hurting yourself. He looked back at Nello. So don't push it. Nello shook his head again, clearly frustrated. You're still misunderstanding, he insisted. At that exact moment, a small burst of flame suddenly shot up from the glass beaker on the table beside Polar. Nello froze. Polar turned instantly. Oh. Before the fire could spread, he flicked his fingers and muttered a quick spell. A ripple of blue magic flashed through the air, smothering the flame immediately. The room filled with a small puff of smoke. For a moment, everything was quiet. Nello stared at the slightly blackened beaker. Oops. Polar slowly turned toward him. You distracted me, he said flatly. Nello scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. I didn't mean to. Polar stared at him for another second. Then suddenly he started laughing. Not just a quiet chuckle, an actual amused laugh. Nello blinked, looking even more awkward now. "What?" he muttered. Polar wiped the corner of his eye, still smiling. "I think this is a clue to mind my own business," he said. Nello groaned and went back to crushing the plants, trying very hard to ignore him while Polar continued laughing quietly to himself. The horse slowed as it entered the wide training valley. Aarhiya leaned slightly to the side, expecting to see the usual sight, bare ground, scattered rocks, and the tall wooden training posts where he had spent months practicing. Instead, he blinked. Wait, what? The entire valley looked different. Where there had once been dull grass and empty space, there were now soft lanterns hung from thin wooden poles, glowing gently in the afternoon light. A long cloth had been spread across a low table, decorated with plates of fruit, small pastries, and, most surprising of all, a large jar of deep red wine with 2 cups beside it. Aarhiya stared in disbelief. What happened here? He slid off the horse quickly and turned to Kaenar with wide eyes. Did we come to the wrong place? Kaenar stepped down more calmly. No, he said simply. Aarhiya looked around again, completely stunned.
This place was just dirt and training dummies yesterday.
Kaenar folded his arms loosely. I asked Toda to arrange it. Aarhiya blinked again. You did? Kaenar nodded. It's to celebrate your milestone. Aarhiya tilted his head. My milestone? Your power awakening, Kaenar clarified. You've worked hard for it. He paused briefly.
And for something else as well.
And for something else as well. Aarhiya didn't ask what that something else was. He was already too busy looking around in excitement. This is amazing, he said, practically glowing. Without hesitation, he rushed toward the small table. Kaenar watched him go, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Aarhiya picked up the wine cup like he had just discovered treasure. There's even wine. He quickly poured a cup, sniffed it, then took a small sip. His eyes immediately widened. Oh wow, he said with delight. This is really good. He turned around and held up the second cup. Come drink with me. Kaenar hesitated. He rarely drank. As emperor, he usually avoided anything that might dull his judgment. But Aarhiya was already looking at him expectantly. With a quiet sigh, Kaenar walked over. Just 1 cup, he said. They sat down across from each other on the cloth. Kaenar lifted the cup and took a small sip. Aarhiya, meanwhile, seemed to enjoy the wine much more enthusiastically. This is amazing, Aarhiya said again, pouring himself another little splash. You have good taste. Kaenar watched him with quiet amusement. After a few moments, Aarhiya leaned back slightly, his expression turning thoughtful. You know, he said slowly, holding his cup. Aarhiya pointed lightly at the wine between them. Now that we're drinking together, that kind of makes us friends, right? Kaenar almost laughed at the logic. Does it? Aarhiya nodded seriously. Yes. And friends are allowed to ask each other things honestly. Kaenar set his cup down. All right, he said. Ask. Aarhiya hesitated for a moment before speaking. There's something that's been bothering me. Kaenar could already guess where this was going.
Why do people call you a demon?
The question hung quietly between them. Kaenar's expression stiffened slightly. For a moment, he looked like he might avoid answering. But after a long pause, he exhaled slowly. Because of my father. Aarhiya blinked.
You know who he is?
Kaenar shook his head.
No.
Aarhiya frowned
My
in
mother
confusion.
was the princess of Umbraeth.
My mother was the princess of Umbraeth, Kaenar explained. When my grandfather died, she became the heir to the throne. But many people opposed her. Why? Aarhiya asked. Because she was a woman, Kaenar said plainly. He glanced toward the valley. Only 2 women had ever ruled Umbraeth before her. So people questioned whether she had the strength to lead. Aarhiya frowned. That's ridiculous. Kaenar gave a small shrug. Power and tradition rarely make room for fairness. He continued. My uncle was the loudest voice against her claim. He believed the throne should go to him instead. Aarhiya listened quietly. But then, Kaenar said slowly, something changed. What? My mother suddenly gained a powerful supporter. A man no one truly knew. He was incredibly powerful, Kaenar continued. Stronger than anyone in Umbraeth. His voice lowered slightly. People said he was a demon. No one dared oppose him. And because of him, my mother secured the throne. What happened to him? Aarhiya asked softly. Kaenar stared at the wine for a moment before answering. He disappeared. Just like that. Kaenar nodded. He vanished shortly after my mother discovered she was pregnant with me. Silence settled between them. There was nothing anyone could do to save her, Kaenar continued. She died when I was 13. The valley felt suddenly quieter. Kaenar's gaze drifted toward the sky. And that same day. He paused briefly. The sun appeared over Umbraeth. For a while after Kaenar finished speaking, neither of them said anything. Aarhiya thought about that moment from 10 years ago when he touched the barrier. Could it be? No. It was only a coincidence. Slowly, he reached out. His fingers gently closed around Kaenar's hand. Kaenar blinked slightly, surprised by the sudden contact. Aarhiya squeezed his hand reassuringly. Even if people call you a demon, Aarhiya said softly, that doesn't change who you are. Kaenar looked at him. Aarhiya's eyes were steady, sincere. The world may have labeled you a villain, he continued, but I know that's not true. He smiled faintly. I know who you are. Something warm flickered across Kaenar's expression. Before the moment could grow too heavy, Aarhiya suddenly stood up. Then he tugged Kaenar's hand. Come with me. Kaenar raised an eyebrow but allowed himself to be pulled along. Where are we going? You'll see, Aarhiya replied with a playful grin. They walked together toward the far edge of the valley where the land sloped into a rocky cliff. Below, a river flowed quietly through the gorge, the water glimmering under the lantern light. Aarhiya stopped at the edge and looked down. Kaenar followed his gaze. You're not thinking what I think you're thinking, Kaenar said slowly. Aarhiya turned to him with excitement sparkling in his eyes. We should jump. Kaenar blinked. Jump? Aarhiya nodded eagerly. Together. For a moment, Kaenar simply stared at him. Then he laughed softly. All right, Kaenar said. Aarhiya's face lit up. They stepped closer to the edge, their hands still clasped together. Aarhiya counted quietly. 3. They jumped. For a brief moment, they fell through open air together, their robes fluttering around them as the river rushed up to meet them. Then, splash. When their heads broke through the water again, both of them burst into laughter. Aarhiya pushed his wet hair out of his face, breathing hard but smiling brightly. Aarhiya looked at Kaenar with a shy expression. "Thank you," he said softly. Kaenar tilted his head slightly. "For what?" Aarhiya glanced down at the water. "You know that I am afraid of it." Kaenar nodded. Aarhiya smiled a little. "Because of you. I'm not anymore." He looked back at him, slightly embarrassed. "Now when I'm in the water, I think I'll only remember you." Kaenar's smile softened into something genuine. Without saying anything, he pulled Aarhiya closer.
梅雨河畔，大雾又散，气势深垂为首，依稀泛白长衫。鬓发层层如压云依然，不屑竹针蹒跚，脚步悠悠晃晃，如当年刚下那摇橹船。望若旧时光重现，那卖花的人儿解马为战，从他递过白兰的指尖，传来春江的暖。
I'm so happy!
白了花一堆，弄堂弯弯，女里相惜，离合悲欢，履带轻轻